for me, that's novels tend to be my favorite, like thin, small novels that are almost, short stories, but bigger. I like that stuff so much. I feel like that makes me feel the most content. But again, you gotta write what you want to write. Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast, everybody. Sorry for the audio quality and the visuals here. I got kicked out of my house for reading too much Louis L'Amour at the dinner table. And we're on vacation, so I'm out here and everybody's sleeping in there because it is our classic 4 a.m. time for recording. But we bring the energy, we bring the fun. I'll let Nathaniel tell you what's going on today. It's going to be a fun one, I think. I'll enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude, a little nip and tuck with this episode, but we made it through. We're here. Hopefully for the rest of the episode we'll be here. But today we are doing a Q&A, one of our favorite sort of episodes to do. It's cool to hear what the Discord community wants to hear from us. It's also cool to be asked questions that kind of like test the water on men's adventure fiction genre and how it's coming back and all of that sort of stuff. So we'll just jump right into the questions. First one comes from Grayson the Overcomer on Discord. What are your thoughts on static characters that more or less stay the same from beginning to end? Conan, Doc Savage, and even Atticus Finch are all static. What do you think?
Let me take a crack at it.
Yeah, go for it.
So when you say someone like Atticus Finch, I think that proves when a static character is done really, really well for good reason. It's like his static nature is the theme of the whole book, you know what I mean? Like he stands for something. You can slap him, spit on him, do whatever, threaten him. He's not going to move off of his morals and his values there, which is awesome. So that makes his character even stronger than it's like a static character on accident where you just didn't write any change or depth or anything like that. But then when it comes to someone like some of those other examples, also fine, I think, because that's also done with intention. The story and the adventure and all of the stuff we love about the genre seems to be more so what you're going to read that for. I'm not going to Conan to read about his, change of heart or like him growing in any particular manner. We go to those kind of stories like Doc Savage for more of the adventure. So as long as that's doing the heavy lifting, that the character having too much depth would actually take away from all of that you've gone to the genre for in those particular cases, it seems. Like Fire in the Tall Grass has a very static Noah compared to Odyssey of Fire, and that's why they read very differently. Like one's much more what you would consider like, oh, this is a high adventure book, and then one's like got adventure elements and also story elements, I guess. So long-winded answer, I think static characters are great as long as the intention's there from the author and it's not an accident. I think an accidental static character for you come into some trouble.
I really like that. I hadn't thought about the intention behind whether or not a character is static or dynamic, but I think that that's very smart. I would agree with everything you said for sure. I think that it's tough, right? I think you can do men's adventure fiction with a dynamic character, and that's really cool and works well. But I think classically, a lot of these kind of archetypes of the genre are more static. I just said with a dynamic character, right? I didn't say with a static character. All right, cool. I lost my train of thought for a second there. I mean, even Indy, by and large, in the first 3 movies is pretty static. I guess kind of in Crusade, he grows and shifts.
Change at the end.
Yeah, but still, it's nothing like ultra drastic. He doesn't like find something crazy new about himself throughout that movie. Although he unlocks some stuff with his dad and grows a little bit. But so I think that is probably my favorite kind of combo of the things where, like, with Noah and Fire in the Tall Grass, I feel like he shifts a tiny bit. It's not like drastic. You don't not recognize him by the end of the book. You're like, okay, this is the same guy. But the story has had an impact on him to some degree. So I think that's probably my favorite kind of combo of the two, where it's like, all right, I didn't find a new character, like this is the same character that we started with. He has just shifted ever so slightly. But yeah, I don't know. It's so tough. Like, what do I prefer? I think you were just spot on. It works perfectly to have the static character who everything changes around him, and that's the point of the character. But he stays the same, and he keeps punching or swinging his sword or doing whatever it is, cracking the bullet to get through it. And I think that's really cool because I think it's something that we need as people to a degree, where it's like it's so easy to see all of the shifts that happen in life and kind of be like, well, how am I gonna hold to the same morals that I wanted to when I was younger, or how am I gonna keep my optimism? How am I gonna do X, Y, or Z? And then you see these characters who the winds of the tide and changing waters in life just keep buffeting them and hitting them hard, but they stay the same. They keep their convictions and fight their way through no matter what. And then you're like, all right, well, if they can do it, maybe I have a chance too. So I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, firing me up, because that's what, like, the genre in itself, how we talk about as ideals and stuff like that.
Right.
That's why, as I get older and stuff, move further away from the deconstructed Death of Robin Hood type vibe of story. I would rather see Zorro stay the swashbuckler and hold the same optimism, everything, because it's very inspiring and gives you something to look for. Because, like you said, I mean, you get older, you can start to get jaded. Like, that stuff's just for the books. Like, I can cut a little corner here. I can be less than the ideals that I wanted to, because that's not real life. But if you keep the good man propaganda of the genre, dude, you can keep it like for a lot longer. I like it.
Yeah.
Answer my thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well said, brother. The next one is from Ryan from And I Quote, and he said he originally asked us about the question we talked about a little on episode 100. How do we write and read more instead of being on our phone so much? But I said we covered that, I think, pretty well in that episode, unless you had anything you wanted to tack on.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change the same answer, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think finding the medium of being able to use the phone for the good of your writing and reading is incredibly difficult, but if you can really start getting cooking. And then he asked, what is a better avenue for a writer? Anthology of short stories or standalone novellas?
Me first?
Sure.
I think it's got to be what you want to write is the biggest thing. Whatever would actually keep you there sitting and writing and interested and engaged. Yeah. The writer's got to write what he wants to write, or else if you're just writing to the market, I think they always say that's one of the worst things to do, because you won't like it. You'll be trying to just please people. So write what you want to write and how you want to write it. I think for me, that's novels tend to be my favorite, like thin, small novels that are almost short stories but bigger. I like that stuff so much. I feel like that makes me feel the most content. But again, you gotta write what you want to write. What do you think on this, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think of your answer, but I think that's for sure 100% true, dude. Spot on. It's tough too, because you if you're not taking it from, all right, well, I like writing both, right? That's where you turn. You're like, oh, I like writing novellas. I like writing short stories. Then it's kind of tricky. And if you're asking, like, if the question's market predictions, that is tough, man. I'm not sure. I think my first thought is that short stories are perfect for this day and age where people are having a hard time paying attention. But I don't know that people like to buy something knowing that there's going to be a lot of different things to read. So it's interesting. It's almost like with your marketing, you have to have a really strong, maybe it's a combo of the two, right? Your first short story is like 10 to 12,000 to 15,000 words. So it's actually a novella. And then you hit them with one of the things that I think they did a lot back in the day, where it would be like Wings Over Brazil and really small text at the bottom and other stories. And so then the reader's able to be like, oh, okay, one book, I can read that. And then they get really sucked in. And by the time they get to the end of that novella, they're like, what, it's over already? And then like, wait a minute, there's 5 other stories in here? Awesome. So I think that probably I mean, a novella, I think, is a really solid move in general. But if that's not where you feel confident, and you want to start working on more stories, or you want to flesh out more ideas, or you want to have a thicker book that you can ask more money for, I think that kind of combining the two is a really smooth move, because people don't realize that they want to read until you give them something they want to read, and then they're like, oh wow, I didn't realize reading could be fun. I mean, when you first published your Welcome Ralph on your website, right around when we first met, I was sending it to all my friends, and one of my friends was like, dude, I didn't know they wrote stuff like this. This was sick. And I think that that's where we're at with society now. Is like, when people think of reading, probably the number one thing they think of is something like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. And Harry Potter's at this point for kids, so they're probably, I don't read kids stuff. And then Game of Thrones is just so freaking dense and yeah, filled with subplots about characters you don't care about at all. That they're when you say, oh yeah, I wrote an adventure story, they're like, oh, adventure like Game of Thrones, huh?
Yeah,
no, not it couldn't be any more different than that. So yeah, that's a great question though, Ryan. It's a super interesting one to think about, for because you to Luke's point, it's the double whammy, right? If you want to write for what you want to write, but you also don't want to write a bunch of stuff that no one's interested in reading at all if you want to make money as a writer. So it's tricky to read through the market and also your own passions and desires. So yeah, good question. Anything to add, do you think, Luke? Or I feel like that was pretty good.
I don't think so. Other than like the market prediction side of things, I have no clue. It'd be betting on the stock market. I thought like smaller novels would be good, but who knows? I mean, I think you're right. The short story collection, if done that way, maybe with like the more stories, I think we're starting to see more of it anyway. So the trend could go that way. So I have no idea. That's why I don't bet or do stock market stuff really.
Well, I think you are right. Either way, the answer, I think, is write short stuff that drags people into the pages
shorter
immediately.
People, our attention spans, all that. You're competing with Netflix and HBO Max and Paramount Plus and everything.
Yeah, screen time in general, dude.
Right. Instagram, all of it.
Yeah. So Don asks, for each of you and both together, what is your end goal of your career? What does it look like for you, and some of the steps you are both taking, or individual? You want to go into, we can talk both of us first, and then we can both go more individual. All right, cool. I can start since you started the last two ones. I think this is tough. It's hard to kind of break my mind into a difference between both and each of us.
I know, it's always just one.
Because I mean, I wouldn't be here without you, dude. So thanks for pulling me in. I think for both of us, the passion is just to rekindle people's interest in good storytelling. I can't speak for you fully, but I feel like that's your heart behind it, and what I've seen the whole time. I think it's also something I think about a lot is we both have individually kind of seen the idea of people not doing the things that they want to do because they're afraid of failure or whatever it is. So being able to see people make the proper trajectory in the sense of like, oh, you've always had this dream to do this. Why aren't you doing it? And then for them to take that. So for Veritas to be kind of an avenue to open that path up for people has just been incredible for me to see. So I think that that's kind of the view for both, is like the heart between Veritas Entertainment is that idea of like, this is not just watching from the outside, right? Veritas is made and successful because of the people watching this and the people who submit and the people who want these stories and have had that dream of like running around in the backyard, coming up with stories on the cuff, that energy coming to people who actually are able to produce stuff. Because there's so many, I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? You've got Robin Williams levels of acting somewhere that's never been seen. You have Martin Scorsese directing ability that's never been seen. You have the next Hemingway hasn't been, and everyone's just getting kind of hidden beneath all of the other stuff going on. So for Veritas to be any sort of platform to get those people the eyes they need, I think is just incredible.
Yeah, well said. That's exactly it. It's like the heart of what this genre can do as far as inspiring people, and
Yeah.
that is fulfilling, I feel like, to us. And that's what they always say, right? Don't chase the money, chase like purpose in what you're doing. And so it
Right.
never, our end goal is not like Fortune 500. I don't, like, we just want to be able to meet more people who are doing this, have these good conversations, read other people's stories and get fired up, have them fire us up, with them, us fire them up with our stories.
Right.
Like, it's just this community and
It's
like
beautiful.
helping people connect with their passions again. Like you said, I love nothing more than when someone had this dream and like hasn't put it on display until they felt like this was their call to adventure, and then they did it, and it takes them off into a career of writing, and it's so like that is the fulfilling part of this all to me.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. What about for you personally?
I think personally, it's more so just the more freedom you can get in this day and age is better. You know, we're all like
Right.
just like kind of slaves to the work and trying to make money to pay for all the stuff that life has for you, and so
Yeah.
end goal end goal for like the writing career would be sweet to just have Veritas be at least the majority of where my money comes from, so I could work part time in a place that I didn't have more control over. You know what I mean? Where they control the
Right.
schedule than I do. So yeah, end goal is just ultimate control over my schedule. I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm really aiming for. What
Yeah.
about you?
I was thinking a lot about this over the past 12 hours or even less. I think it's been super interesting. So I think that I write because, one, I love the writing medium, but two, it's a lot harder to film movies or short films by yourself. So
Right.
there's also budget issues and vision issues. I remember for a while when I was trying to write short films, I was getting really bad writer's block because I was putting that cap on of like, oh, I'm not going to be able to film that. Like I can't do a car chase, or I can't do a parkour chase on a rooftop, so I can't write that. And that would just kill the creativity, and I couldn't write anything at all. So I just started being like, well, I'll write whatever I have to write and figure it out on the other side. Once it's written, I can make a workaround. So being able to write kind of answered that question for me. But I think the end goal actually is making some sort of visual medium content that tells stories, because what I love about books is that your imagination is the director, right? And usually, if a book's written well, you're able to relate to the character. So I think most people, I don't know if this is true, this might just be talking out my keister, but I think most people view themselves as the main character because that's how good stories are, right? I relate to this character, this could be me. So in your mind's eye, if you read a good book, you are imagining all the settings and seeing all that come to life, and you're also seeing yourself kind of in the role of the hero. And I think that that's what's so inspiring about reading and so cool about it. And to see, like we talked about with Bolomore, that massive drop off from people not even being able to use their imagination is devastating. So if I can do something in the visual medium to pull people back into some sort of imagination and ability to connect with what's inside of their head, and visualize stuff in a new way, super exciting to think about. And I like that synergistic idea, right? The video elements pull you into the reading elements, which pull you back into the video elements, and so on and so forth. So I think that's one thought. And then the other is what we talked about with Zach James, where he said some like 12-year-old was like, I no longer consume plot-based media. And that just pisses me off. You know, like, no, plot-based media is the best stuff there is. You're going to start reading a book, kid. Like, get over it yourself. So I think bringing back story is crucial. So those are kind of my two big passions about it. And then he says, so that's the end goal. What does it look like for you? We talked about a little bit, and then some of the steps you're both taking. So that's a great question. I think that's something we could camp out for a few minutes on, just to encourage people for their own marketing and their own figuring out how to work this stuff. But you have anything you want to toss in there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, all my book sales and success, I feel like, come from Instagram. I have 100,000 followers on my YouTube, and I don't think that's where any sales funnel for my promise. Everybody is mostly the Instagram. And so, like, figuring, like, how I'm spending, the steps we're taking,
Yeah.
it's just trying to figure out Instagram and keep the momentum going up on that. And kind of, I don't play video games really. Like I played 2 or 3 levels of First Light, haven't finished it. I'm sorry, it's cool. I just don't. The video game I'm playing right now is how do I get that stinking number of like followers to go up? That's
Yeah.
a video game I play all day, every day. Too much, and that's the problem. Is you get on your
Right.
phone too. That's a whole thing to talk about. But that is the steps I'm taking. Is like writing these books, making them the best you can, and then on the other side, realizing that the real heavy lifting of being a writer and an author and all that is the marketing. And like
Yeah.
you can write a book and then no one looks at it ever, and then that could be fine. You wrote it, you got it off your chest, off your heart. That's good. Maybe that's what you wanted. But if you want to like I said, make this an income that can at least put me part time at another job, I have to sell books. And so that's my steps right now is how do I market this book? Because I'm starting to see
Yeah.
momentum building, and then you just kind of like try to keep that going and stuff like that. What about you?
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I think the one thing I failed to say about what the end goal was is bringing back men's adventure fiction, pulp adventure. And I think that's what has been working really well for both of our Instagrams and social medias is kind of getting, I think, a practical step that each one of you as a writer who wants to market themselves and their work can take is you have to identify the issue, which is there's not much story like this anymore. And then you have to present yourself as the solution. So, I mean, Luke, you do a fantastic job with that, right? Like, just thinking of an Instagram post that you've done just off the top of my head, right? The embrace masculinity one, embrace good morals, embrace X, Y, Z. You have the whole thing there. Right. And then at the end, you have the call to action, which is embrace the book that does all of this, and that pulls people in. One of the most successful reels that I've posted was just a cool video of me shooting guns and looking like I'm in Indiana Jones sort of settings. And it says, I don't know what I would call this vibe, but we need more of it. And then obviously I think of that as pulp adventure, men's adventure. But it was right. A nice little test to see what the people who are interested in this genre would even think of it as. And I mean, you can go onto my Instagram and see there's probably like 250 comments of people kicking off what they would call it. They call it Indiana Jones maxing, Nathan Drake maxing. They call it pulp adventure, So it's important to understand what people want, what is not being given them by the big corporations, and then fill yourself in as the fix to all of that. So I think that that's what you can do. I mean, there's a massive dearth in sword and sorcery. There's a massive dearth in Indiana Jones stuff. The only real people who are focusing on any sort of pulp or high adventure and doing it well are video games, right? We just had Indiana Jones and First Light in the Old Country, and they all seem pretty successful. So if you can get them to be like, oh, it feels like First Light, or oh, it feels like Indiana Jones, or oh, it feels like that Stranger Than Heaven game, or Mafia the Old Country, or GTA 6, and they can see that there's other mediums of media that are filling the need that they want, then they're going to be interested. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the past 6 months.
Yeah, I'll say my whole thing that works for marketing for me is what they used to say to do when you're trying to sell your book to like an agent or the agent selling it to a publishing house is comp titles. Like, what does this book compare to? What would you...
Right,
is
right.
Ocean's 11 meets Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, when you do those comp titles, for me, is what I built my whole Instagram off of, is finding the aesthetics of the stuff that does fire me up in the genre, and that is kind of what would take inspiration or heart from Fire in the Tall Grass. Because like you said, it's the connective tissue. You show them what they like first. Because if I just show them Fire in the Tall Grass, like, what is that? Scroll away. But if it's Spencer Dutton, everyone loves that guy. You stop, you look, and then you pull them deeper and deeper into, oh, this is actually a book with those vibes if you wanted to see more of that.
Yeah, dude.
And those posts, I will say, they make me more sales than freaking ads ever did. Like, running
that's crazy.
Ads have done worse than just having a really solid Instagram post that works, which is crazy.
Same. I agree 100%. So it's tough. That's a little like ethereal of being like, oh yeah, just figure it out and you'll have figured it out, But at the same time, the actionable things I think are, all right, pay attention to what you're seeing on social media, what people seem to like, what there's hunger for, and then find a way to pitch yourself as the person who fills that gap. And I learned that from Luke. You crushed it, dude. All right, the next one is from Jumanji, and he says, what is your all's writing method, routines before writing? That's a tough one. I could start, since I woke up super early to write and then did not do it as much since we jumped on here a little early. I think it's important for me to kind of knock out the things that would take my attention away from writing as fast as I can, right? And if that's, like Luke mentioned, I'm also just way too interested in figuring out how to get more people following me on Instagram and viewing my stuff on Instagram, because it directly correlates to book sales. So that's, all right, get the Instagram out of the way within like 10 minutes if I can, and then mute that app for as long as I can. And since I spend most of the time writing on my phone, since I can type with my thumbs way better than I can with a keyboard, it's very much having to kind of shut my phone down to a one app thing, which is just Google Docs, and then write exclusively on there. Usually, if I'm writing late at night, I'll have some sort of a coffee or a cappuccino of some kind, and I'll probably smoke something because I'm a dad of 2 daughters. I wake up early to work out. I have a full-time job. So once I start doing something that's even remotely relaxing, it's very hard to stay awake. But if I've got a cigar, I got to keep smoking, a coffee, I got to keep drinking, a pipe I have to keep relighting, that keeps me awake enough to write. So that's probably my writing routine. And I certainly don't write every day. I try to write 2 to 3 times a week. But it ebbs and flows. I think something you talked about before is, at this point, I know when a deadline is due. And if that means I have to write every single day to get it done, I'll do that. But there's times where I take a week or 2 off and don't really write anything. But what about you, brother?
Yeah, but I don't have a very solid routine until I get into those moments where I do need one.
Right.
And in those moments, what I do typically is, first thing when I wake up, drink water, drink coffee, and then go right to the writing. Because like you said, I open Instagram or go down any other rabbit hole, let me look at work's emails, let me do anything else, then I could get distracted and slide off into the day and then not have read. So when I know I need to get writing done, I make it the first thing. I used to say it's like the Cobra Kai philosophy is how I used to live my life and write, where strike first, so you got to wake up early, strike hard, you got to do it super, super, in-depth focus, no distractions. That's why I like waking up early to write, because no one's texting me, nothing's happening.
Right.
And then the no mercy part was actually when they switched to sometimes mercy, because you can only really, for me, output at your best for 45 minutes, and then you're going to be looking for your phone, your brain's going to be a little bit fatigued, so you have to take a break at that point. So I'll get up and maybe be done for the day, 45 minutes, I'll be solid. Or if I need to get back to it, you need to just get up, walk around, watch a YouTube video or 2, talk to somebody, text back and forth, then get back to it, and then you can come back to it with more vigor and your better mind. So that's my routine when I need it. But I've just been, it's so sporadic, you know what I mean? I'll be between clients at work, I won't have anything going on, so let me pull out the laptop and write a little bit, and I'll write a few words here and there.
I think that's such a good piece of advice. The other day, I don't remember where I was. Oh, I was at the dentist yesterday morning, and I sat down and I had to wait. And before I left for the dentist, I'd been working on some writing. I was like, let's just pick this back up. I got 5 minutes here. I'm just going to crank out 100 words, 200 words, something like that. And sure enough, I did it, And then they were like, Nathaniel, come on back. And I was like, all right, go 1 second. I got it. So I think that taking advantage of the open opportunities, crucial stuff.
That's why you should not get too sacred with your writing routines and processes. If you need a candle and some music in the background every time, you won't have that spontaneity to write in a cafe or something on a napkin, or I think you just got to keep yourself open to the opportunities to write whenever. It's the same guy who reads wherever always keeps a book on him. He's going to read much more than a guy who only reads at home before bed. It's being more flexible with your routines helps, I think. Yeah,
dude. Louis L'Amour in Education of a Wandering Man said that he read thousands of books just in the time he was waiting. And imagine how many more books he would have written if he'd had a phone where he could have just been writing, or a laptop where he could have taken that thing everywhere writing. I mean, that would have been unreasonably
Too many
a
books.
ton
The
of.
only books in the library are Louis L'Amour at that point.
Yeah, it would be insane. Yeah, great stuff. Then Ian Callan, the author of Sirens, said, where do you see Veritas in 5 years? And then the second question was, if you were given a dream project, ability to work with any character franchise and no budgetary concerns, what would it be? I can go first on the Veritas thing. If I think there's two views that I have of Veritas, and in 5 years. One is that it's like a really big production company, and Luke and I are doing it full time and having a blast. And then the other is that it just slows down a little bit and takes kind of a back burner seat, which would still mean it was dropping several books a year, probably like 5 to 10 books a year, but still pushing out content. It just would have to be pushed back if we weren't able to work full time and make most of our money off of it. But that is like, there is no scenario where it goes away to me at all.
Right.
I don't think. But I don't foresee the second one happening. I do see that just the scaling that's happened over the last year and a half or year and 7 months or whatever it is, seems like it's trending more towards like, okay, this is going to be a full-time job in maybe 3 years or something like that. Obviously, that's super optimistic, and there's a lot of things that could change and shift, but I for sure foresee the more optimistic of the ones coming to fruition. What about you?
Yeah, I think in 5 years, the thing that I noticed would be different would be I think we're going to be making more movies, and like you said, the scale would be higher. Because that is, to your point, that's one of the bigger goals, and with Veritas, with all three of us, like with Casey, movies and stuff are at the center of that. And the book stuff, I think, like you said, it's more of the static character. We are doing it how we like it right now, and we like it. So it'll be up to our time allotment, that how much time we have in our lives, that books will pump out. Because, of course, the heart of us would like to do 100 books a month, you know what I mean? But it's just, we're not capacity. But in 5 years, I think for sure we're just going to keep scaling up what we're doing. But the book stuff would be probably more static because this is how we like it and it's what we want to do. So that'll all depend on how much free time we have on how many books come out.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited to be making movies for a lot more time, dude. Incredible. That's just such a rich medium. So yeah, I'm super excited to see what happens in the next 5 years. But I have high hopes. So we'll see. The best thing about Veritas, right, is I don't see there being any way that we fail at the end of the day. You know, like we have right now, this has been the most successful enterprise I've ever been a part of. You know, like we have essentially rejuvenated a whole entire genre that people really, really love not because of Luke, me, and Casey, but because of the people who have been submitting stuff, the people who have been writing, the people who are just as passionate about this as we have. All we've done, I feel like, is give a kind of like a banner for us to all stand under and work together. So it's just been such an incredible experience.
Love it. What was the other part of the question? I forget it.
So if you were given a dream project ability to work with any character franchise and no budgetary concerns, what would it be?
You can go first. I had to think.
Dude, this one's a tough one. My first thought would be Uncharted and Nathan Drake. I would love to play Nathan Drake. That would be so sick. And no budgetary concerns. I would do everything practical that I could. And then my second thought would be James Bond would be super sick. And then my third thought is like, well, as a kid, I remember I would always want to play as a character for any sort of like imaginary adventures we'd have running around in the backyard. And then there's a shift where I was like, well, this guy is limited by the stories that have already been told. So maybe I should take a character just like him or with aspects of him and make it kind of my own thing. And then I essentially combined James Bond and Nathan Drake and Indiana Jones, and that's how Nate Colt came to be. So then there's a third option of like, oh, well, I mean, sure, playing Nathan Drake would be super sick, but there is kind of a little bit of, not bad feeling, but just kind of like, oh, I didn't create this character. This is taking someone else's work and then running off with it and not using it to my own. So then it's like, oh, well, maybe I should just do my own guy with no budgetary constraints. So I think at the end of the day, the answer would probably be, it would be so sick to make a feature film, Nate Colt adventure with no budgetary restraints, because I really like that ownership and coming with the character from like inception to actual full writing. It's just so cool to me. And then a fourth option would be more people need to know who Chet Drum is. So taking all 20 of his books and making movies about that, that would be fantastic. But what about you, brother?
I think my dream project like that is still and will always be, I want to make The Contender and The Brave by Robert Lipsyte into either movies, or they could work really well as like the miniseries things where there's 5 episodes for season 1 and 5 episodes for season 2. But dude, Contender and The Brave, I want them so badly to be adapted, and I would love to do it with, no budget. Yeah. You don't need. It's not going to have like a massive budget. It would be
right.
You can make it for relatively cheap. It's a boxing story, but it is a period piece for both of them. The first one's 60s, second 80s. Like that'd be where the budget came in. But that would be my dream, is to make those.
That would be so sick.
And I still like. I don't know too much about it, and we always have our own stuff going on. But there is always times where I like go down the Google rabbit hole of like who owns the rights to those, or like how would you get. I want to write, and maybe I'll write the thing on spec and then just like send it out to Robert.
That's genius. Just trick him.
That'd be my biggest dream, I think, making those.
Yeah, I know, dude. Once you start opening that can of worms, it's like, oh, I'd also love to do a Zorro movie. I'd love to do Buck Rogers would be sick. John Carter, Tarzan, like.
What about?
Don't get me started.
Blanking on his name, but you're
Shell Scott.
No, your dude from it's Louis L'Amour's character who's in
Ponga Jim, dude.
Yeah, Ponga Jim.
Ponga Jim would be freaking nuts, dude.
Ponga Jim movie would be fantastic. I would
Turk Matt in the Sky Pirates, bro, just flying around doing. Oh yeah, dude. There's too much good stuff. Fantastic. Great
Orlando
question.
Movie.
Dude, there you go. You get your boxing fix.
Break from filming. Bulk up, humongous, come back, story after prison.
Yeah, dude, how would you?
You guys haven't read Orlando by Louis L'Amour? Check it out, dude. It's a crazy adventure. I brought it with me to this vacation, so I'm gonna read it again.
Heck yeah, dude. The next one is we have 3 more. So, James Dawson says, "What have you learned about publishing, both as authors and publishers of other authors under the Veritas umbrella?" That's a good question.
Yeah, Instagram being the avenue to sales for me is like the biggest lesson I learned, because it's the one that's moved the needle most. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like how long in my career did I go with like very little book sales, and then finally figuring out Instagram and seeing that work, and now having successful month after month sustainably now for like nearly 6 months probably of like actually seeing it be successful. That has been the biggest thing, is kind of like honing in on Instagram and the marketing side of things. And then from like the publishing house, it's just, and this might not be a helpful answer, like have any utility to it, but it's just like you said, of the talent that's out there is ridiculous, dude. You know what I mean? Like reading these stories and seeing how good of writers people are is amazing, and it's so inspiring, because we're constantly shown the same names when you go into Barnes & Noble, and it's like you get kind of stale to these same kind of people, and a fresh face will come here and there. But seeing like all these submissions from people who haven't like produced anything that would be in Barnes, so that we would have seen, these complete unknowns, for lack of a better term, amazing, like incredible, and I can't wait to see where some of their careers go. You know what I mean? The people who have submitted, because I think they're incredible. I think they write some of the best stories ever. So yeah, just the sheer talent of the pool out there is wild. That's shocked me.
Yeah. I think it's a Parks and Recs episode where, for some reason, they absolutely loved Joe Biden before he was even president. So there's a bunch of Joe Biden bits. And I think there's one thing where they're talking about a strategy, and they say, like, just pull the Biden, which is everywhere you look, you're always there. So I think that's super important from a marketing standpoint, is like, it's easy to do with men's adventure fiction, right? Because Luke and I, 2 of the most passionate guys about this genre. So if there was other people doing it, we would have been searching high and low, and we would have found them already. So there's a surprisingly small group of people who are really passionate about this genre. So I think one of the most important things to do is every time they see men's adventure fiction, your name is there. Veritas's name has been there, right? Luke and I have been there. At Pulp Fest, boom, we're there. Next week, which you guys should go to, July 11th, I'm going to be there with Ryan Pote and Bo Lamore talking about adventure fiction. You know, like when you hear pulp or men's adventure fiction, sooner or later you will see Luke or Mai's name. That's what you guys can do for whatever genre it is, right? Go see, become so passionate and so relevant to the genre you want to work in that whenever that name comes up, you're there as either the biggest fan of it or one of the biggest practitioners of it. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen from the publishing side of things, right? You need to have your audience know what you're about. And if they love something, you have to be connected to that, especially if it's what you're writing in. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen. You know, like when people come to Veritas, they're going to see the noir collection, the swashbuckling collection, the Western collection, whatever thing else that we have. And then they're going to see 30, 40 books of people writing high adventure stories. And then they're going to be like, okay, well, I know what this is about. I know that I don't like that genre, so I'm not going to check out Veritas. Or I know that that's my favorite genre. I've got 50 books to read through, you know? And I think that that's where you get people to understand how it works. Which, speaking of, the submissions are open for Swashbuckling September. So go ahead and submit a swashbuckling adventure. I think the last Tuesday in August is when the deadline to submit is. So pretty excited about that one. And then we have two more questions. Grayson asked again, if you weren't writing adventure, what would you write? For me, the answer would be probably nothing.
Yeah, adventure books.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to extricate adventure from life. I've thought about this a lot in the sense of like, as a Christian, I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm willing to put before God, which is not a good thing. And adventure for sure has been one of them. And then I've gotten very meta, and it's like, well, literally everything is an adventure, so there's no way to like give up adventure for Lent or anything like that. Yeah. So it's just been a long trajectory of submitting my love for the good things of this life to God and putting them below Him. And usually that comes from the way to solve that best is not trying to stop loving the things that I love, but trying to love God more and pursue time with Him more. So yeah, for me, there's nothing but adventure. Just in kind of like a very real sense. It's like, well, adventure is a dangerous or challenging task that you push through and overcome, and that's literally all of life. So I don't think they could write anything other than adventure.
You gave an earnest, honest, heartfelt answer, but I'm sorry that all I can think of is the men's adventure fiction story where the character gave up adventure for Lent, and the funny.
That would be hilarious, dude.
It would be hilarious.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
That was a good answer, though. I like that. For me, it would be, I'd probably go back to like literary stuff, you know, just like dramas and character-driven. I love character-driven stuff. Yeah, but again, if you're saying you have to avoid adventure, I don't know what kind of characters I'd write about and stuff like that, but it would be character-driven dramas, or and you probably will see this at some point in my career, we've talked about how romance has dudes in it that are basically men's adventure fiction heroes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So writing romance with my wife is probably an option that's going to happen in my life at some point where we're just like...
That's super exciting.
We'll co-write romance stories, but that's still... At least the stuff that I write in there is going to be very men's adventure fiction code. That probably doesn't count. But
well, I mean, the romance in Odyssey of Fire is just so good. I remember reading that the first time and just loving it, because at the heart of most men's adventure is romance. You know, like the story is not very much without a beautiful woman to interact with, have the adventure with, save sometimes, you know, whatever it may be. Yeah, that's a good point.
I just noticed Noah's almost always with ladies in like almost all the story.
That's how it's gotta be. And then
he doesn't even sleep with them; he's just with them.
Yeah, dude. He needs female companionship, which is the case. And then the last one comes from Happy Son. Recommendations for easier reads in the genre for younger people with learning disabilities. That's a good question.
I brought The Contender and The Brave earlier. Those are considered like kids' books.
Right.
I would read those. Those are, the font's bigger, spaced out. Like, it's not a long book. Even if it looks longer, I think it like looks that thick. It is not that long. And it's written in a language that is, it's like written for preteens and things like that. So
Yeah.
That'd be one recommendation. And then we're the unofficial Louis L'Amour podcast. Got to throw him out there because many people have learned English through reading Louis L'Amour. They say that his writing style is simple, and he doesn't use flowery prose or anything like that. So he writes very straightforward in a way that's helped a lot of people learn the language. And so Louis L'Amour, you can't go wrong there. Especially, he's one of the best. You know what I mean? You're not going to be reading dumbed down. Oh, this is watered down. This isn't even good. Why am I reading this? This is going to be the creme de la creme, best stuff you could read, and it's perfect for someone who has any kind of reading struggles. So I think, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, Louis L'Amour was my answer for sure. Yeah, you said it super succinctly and well. But I would just throw out Riley's Luck. I read that, I think, when I was 12 or 13. Formative to who I am as a man. Incredible book. So stuff like that, check it out. It's just everything in there, like we've talked about before. You can go really deep on it and uncover and glean so much from it. Or you can just read it as popcorn storytelling, is kind of check out and don't think too much about it. And both work really well. I think if you read it when you're younger, you will be able to pull more from it. And if you kind of grow up reading it, it'll shape who you become, and you'll be able to retain more information that would probably be someone's guilty pleasure reading, because he does such a good job of marrying incredible life lessons with the best action and the best kind of check out my brain stuff you could ever read. So yeah, definitely go for short stories, go for any one of his westerns, any one of his books, and you'll be good to go.
If you go with a short story collection, you got to use Nathaniel's recommendation of, was it part 4 or volume 4, part 2?
Yeah, fantastic.
That's the best one for sure, in my opinion, as well. Right. After you check that one, because it has Madden's in that too, but it has Ponga Jim for days in there, and that's my favorite of his adventure.
Yeah, shorts. And what's cool too is part 2 is the adventure ones, full fiction, but part 1 of volume 4 is a lot more true to life ones. So I think part 1 has more literary kind of vibes to it. So if you read part 2, you could then read part 1 afterwards to kind of pull you up to another a slightly higher reading level.
Yeah, go up the rungs.
Yeah, exactly. Think a little more instead of just check out as much. But yeah, I mean, this is, as always, I love these question and answer episodes. Fantastic to hear what people want to hear about, talk about it, dive into all that stuff. So thank you guys for submitting the questions. Thank you guys for talking about it. I wanted to touch on Nate Colt and Noah Redford are coming back this year. So be on the lookout for that. I'm super excited for those guys making their return to the page. Other than that, we're going to be here chugging along. Go to Pulp Fest. It's coming up. Go to the Barnes & Noble in Georgetown on July 11th from 2 to 4 p.m. for Bo and Ryan, but you'll also get to see me. Other than that, anything you want to add? Otherwise, we're good to go.
Just thank you guys for submitting the questions. Those were awesome. Great conversation came from it. So we appreciate you guys giving the time for those questions, and I hope you got some value out of the answers. It was fun. Thanks for being here with the sunrise for us. It slowly went brighter and brighter.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, cool. Well, we will see you guys next time.
See you guys next time.